Well, first of all, I mean, a couple of preliminary points. The military is responsible primarily for external threats. Let's not mince words around that. So when it comes to internal security, they don't have the lead. We have a sense in this country that perhaps the police don't have the wherewithal to handle all internal threats, and for which reason the military occasionally should be enlisted. The truth, though, is that, as we saw in Ayawaso West Wogon, the by-election that more or less was aborted, is now quite in evidence that there are parallel structures within the national security that sometimes, outside the chain of command of the regular army, are able to move troops. I mean, this is a suspicion, but it's born out of the proceedings that we all witnessed during the commission of inquiry into the Ayawaso West Wogon incident. So if that's not true, we need clarity from the national security. If it says, look, no, this is a matter for commanders, and commanders are absolutely responsible for moving troops around the country and giving orders and changing and varying orders if necessary. But to the extent that there is still suspicion that certain actors within the national security apparatus have the capacity to instruct the military to do certain things, people are going to view these incidents with great suspicion. We need absolute clarity.
Yeah.
We need the national security to say that, no, we don't move troops, we don't instruct the military, this is a matter for their commanders, etc., etc. Then we have to be clear in our minds, when the military is moving into this civilian context, what kind of chain of command operations exists? And how do they interface with the civilian authorities in those circumstances? I think that's very important to start to allay suspicions. Because from what is building up, it begins to look like it's a national security interference of some kind in what is purely civilian administrative law and order matter.
Well, of course, as the day unfolds, we are hoping for fewer of such incidents. But let's look at the events so far in terms of how the EC has run the election. What would you say? Are you quite pleased with processes so far? Are there areas in which they could have done better?
So previous elections, we've come to the conclusion that a lot of the problems stem from congestion. So what you do is you try and estimate the average number of polling stations, voters per polling station. And then you benchmark each polling station with that. So in previous elections, we've done that analysis and realized that some particular polling stations had way more than the average. So the average is, last time was around 447, thereabout. And there are polling stations with more than almost 1,000 people, or sometimes more than 1,000 people. That naturally creates problems. In this election, like I said, our initial preliminary scan appears to suggest limited congestion, and some have suggested maybe it's because they've increased the polling stations, but that's not correct, because the number of voters have also increased. So in actual fact, number of voters per polling station have increased from 447 to 465. So there are actually now more voters per polling station. But it could well be that distribution has improved.
Right.
If that was the case, though, that will somehow require that in the way that we did our registration, some changes will have occurred, but we didn't see that. It didn't appear as if there was any mechanism around the registration centers to redistribute. So I think what has happened today is more linked to the fact that there are fewer voters than usual. And that has led to a situation where congestion is low. And in our experience, when congestion is low, there is less tension. Because when the equipment failures and you don't have a long queue, people are patient. You fix it somehow on the other one. Secondly, I think our routine mechanisms for resolving challenges have also benefited from some improvements. In the past, when you had equipment failure, the process of switching over to manual and things like that tended to be chaotic. I think now agents are more educated and the rest of it. Though you did see the member for Ningo Pram Pram talking about the fact that he had to come in to educate some EC officers because they were not apparently aware that when you have a failure with one finger, you could change the finger and still get results in terms of authentication, voter authentication, which was very surprising. So what that means, therefore, is that on the whole, training of agents are improving, the political actors themselves are improving, so they know how to resolve these issues quickly. And it does also appear that the political parties generally are playing ball, because a lot of the problems we've had have been political actors sending people to misbehave. And so, to the extent that we don't see a lot of agitation, we can't praise the EC alone. We also have to take into account the fact that usually a lot of the agitation is politically driven. Voters on the whole, to my mind, and this is a bit surprising for those that are political fanatics, I don't think that people are as all into this election as we thought they were. I mean, going around and doing some interviews, I think the expectation that, this is a do and die for a large segment of the population is not correct. I think there are some political fanatics for whom this is a do and die elections. But from the voters that I've spoken to, I sense a lot more lethargy.
What accounts for that?
I think we are getting to that stage of our political maturity where there is a creeping sense that the political parties are not that different. There's a creeping sense. So even people that are sympathizers of one party or the other are no longer locked in this, how do I put it, in this sense of total exclusionism, this sense that, my party, right or wrong, it's not as strong as it used to be. So I think for a lot of people that in the past, at the least provocation, will start to misbehave, or the whole macho man phenomenon and the ability to, resource macho men and spend them to, put fear into people, intimidate them from coming to vote. I think a lot of those types of activities are winding down. Partly due to people becoming much more mature about it. I want to say that that's the picture across the entire country. But I'm saying that in very significant number of polling stations, our experience has been that there seems to be a maturity about how people vote nowadays. And some of that stems, I think, from this growing disillusion with absolute loyalty to political parties. This notion that, as an MPP or NDC or CPP person, I have to, this is the altar on which I die. I think that kind of attitude has started to reduce somewhat. We still see a lot of vitriol on social media. But it's much easier to do those things on social media. It's harder to move it. So in general, my sense is that there are multiple factors to account for this sense of calm and tranquility we are observing. One of them being obviously that the EC has not done too badly in terms of its logistics rollout. Secondly, the political parties appear to be willing to focus on the standard means of winning, despite all the talk about ways and means and fake ballot papers and pre-stamped printed ballots. You always have some of those scattered incidents. But I don't think that political parties today believe that is the primary way in which you influence elections anymore. They are using more consultants. I don't know if you are aware, but our recent investigations that we conducted suggest that the trend of using international political consultants is continuing. That the MPP, for instance, have more than one or so international consultants, including Constello PR from France, that some of their members have denied, but which, our evidence, we have strong evidence to suggest that this is the case. So there's a lot more professionalization of the elections. This tendency to rely on using tools of the trade in international political consulting. All of these things mean they are moving away a little bit from the buga and from the macho men and those kind of things. All of that, I think, is helping.